20,000 comics in each bedroom, so it was full. So we thought, we'll try a store. There was no comic book stores at that time. We were the first on the West Coast to contemplate having a comic book store. And we lived in Pacific Beach, and that's how the name Pacific came about. We just named it Pacific Comics, and we opened a store on Cass Avenue in TV. It was a small store, and from day one it was a smash hit. We had, literally on Saturday mornings, we'd have people around the block waiting to get into the Sultani comic book store. And I was 17 at that time, Bill was 14, we were partners. And my mom ran it during the weekday because we were in school. And we sold a hell of a lot of comics. We, at that time, bought our comic books from a local distributor on a returnable basis, and people that sell 7-Elevens or convenience stores. And we were selling such volume that we took most of the comics that came into San Diego were sold in that one store. And we were selling a hell of a lot of comic books. It was quite amazing. And we couldn't get enough comic books to have supply the demand because we believed in the medium and people were really hungry for comic books. It was a fun thing and there was no downside to it. And people loved them from far and wide. And so we started calling around to the publishers to see if we could buy comic books directly from the publishers, which was another new concept because they had not heard about that. We were willing to buy them non-returnable, so there was no risk to the publishers. And they could base their print run on a realistic figure. When you sell comic books to a traditional retailer, returnable, you may have an 8 or 9% sell-through. So you ship out 100,000, you sell 8,000 or 9,000. And there's a lot of waste to the system and inefficiencies. So as a 17-year-old, I would be on the phone badgering Stan Lee at Marvel. Or people at DC with major companies saying, we can do this. They're talking to this kid. And anyway, we wore him down. So we got a direct relationship almost at the same time as other individuals around the country, independent of each other, developing the same concepts, stores to distributorships, very interesting time frame, and willing to buy material non-returnable. So we ended up with buying comics directly from Marvel and DC and a few other publishers at that time, and still wasn't meeting the demand. We were selling all we can get. We opened a few more stores, and we thought, well, what is a comic book? How does one create it? It was a real mystery to me. I didn't realize there was all the various components. So we decided, well, we'll try to produce comic books. And up to that point, we had known a lot of comic book creators because we were in the business. We sold at Comic-Con since the second year. And we had relationships with creators because we enjoyed their company, enjoyed Jack Kirby. And we had always shipped Jack Kirby free comics that he drew on a monthly basis because he never got free samples from the companies he was working for. He couldn't see what he was doing. And just as a courtesy to this amazing man, we would just ship him whatever it was, extra comics. So for years and years, he got free comics from us. We weren't expecting anything back. We just thought he deserves free comics. So anyway, we decided to produce comic books. We thought, who can we possibly get? We don't know anything about producing comic books. We're young. And we're young, and we didn't think about the downside. We didn't think about difficulties. The whole concept of creating something that had not been done before, and breaking the mold. So we thought, well, we'll just send out some letters. And we went to Jack Kirby, and Jack was just so professional, so nice, and also had started at a very young age. And I remember those trials when he was a young man, and he called us and said, I'd like to work with you. So we signed Jack Kirby right off the bat, which was an unbelievable coup for us. And that enabled us to basically get other talent. And in order to get Jack Kirby, in order to become a publisher that's competitive, we had to have some way of attracting the talent. Most talent was working for Marvel and DC at the same low page rate or leaving the industry. There was no options for them. And most of them were in for a while and then left because there was animation or there was other ways of generating income. So we told our people we pitched to, we'll have creator ownership and we'll have something new besides creator ownership, royalties. So that raised a lot of eyebrows because if you created something that was popular and sold well, you would get a piece of the action from issue 1. So that was revolutionary. And that enabled us to get Jack Kirby and Neil Adams and Sergio Ardonis and new talent like Dave Stevens, who was a local San Diego artist. And that enabled us to be very competitive. At the same time, it caused a lot of problems in that we were a distributor from Marvel, DC, and they didn't particularly like us becoming a publisher. And off the bat, we're selling 100,000 units. We're beating them. Two kids are beating them in print runs who have no history of being publishers. And we're attracting the talent. And so not only were they upset that we were one of the major distributors, we were a competitor, and then they had to match the royalty rates. So it cost them millions the second year into us being in business. They were not too happy. So there was a lot of pressure there for us to cease what we were doing.